Hello, Internet! Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about Dr. Stone. More specifically, we're talking about why the cast of Dr. Stone might be the most well-built crew in shonen. Not because they're likable, although I do like these characters, and I think they're all pretty well written. They're also cool, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how this anime basically has a roster of people with completely different skill sets, and how if you pull one out, the whole operation fails. 13 characters, 13 types of genius. We're going through all of them today, so if you feel like you're one of these characters, or more than one type of genius, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy the video, leave a like. All right, let's get into it. So, Senku. Senku is the obvious starting point because he's the one the whole show's built around. And his genius is pretty straightforward on the surface. He knows science. Like, a lot of it. An uncomfortable amount of it for a high schooler, but okay, anime. But here's the thing that I think people undersell about Senku specifically. It's not just that he knows things. Lots of people know things. What makes Senku different is that he knows process. He doesn't just know what sulfuric acid is, he knows what you need to make it, what you need before that, what you need before that, and so on all the way back to dirt and rocks and whatever's lying around. His brain works like a production roadmap, point A to point Z, every step accounted for, every dependency mapped out. So like the phone arc is a good example of this. The goal is a working cell phone. Most people hear that and think, okay, that's impossible, you're in a stone world. Senku hears that and immediately starts listing every single intermediate invention that has to happen first, and there are a lot of them, and he already knows what order they go in. That's not just knowledge, that's a very specific kind of brain. And then there's the revival fluid, which is honestly the best showcase of how he thinks. He wakes up after 3,700 years, figures out from bat guano and cave drips that nitric acid is what's breaking the petrification, and then reverse engineers the entire formula from that one observation. He worked out why it worked before anyone even thought to ask. Without Senku, there is no kingdom of science. Not because he's the strongest or the most useful in a fight, he is very much not that, but because he's the only one holding the entire roadmap in his head. Everyone else can execute, only Senku knows what to execute and in what order. He is, for better or worse, the blueprint. So Chrome is interesting because on paper he looks like the discount Senku. Like he calls himself a sorcerer, he collects rocks and plants, he has this little shed full of random stuff he's been experimenting with, and then Senku shows up and immediately solves everything Chrome has been puzzling over for years. So it kind of looks like Chrome just gets replaced the moment the actual scientist arrives. Except, that's not what happens at all. Because Chrome's genius isn't knowledge, it's innovation. He gets an idea, runs with it, and figures it out by feel, by curiosity, by just messing with stuff until something works. He doesn't know the formula, he finds the function. And the whole process is kind of hilarious, honestly, because it always goes the same way. Chrome gets an idea, grabs Kaseki, whispers something to him, and Kaseki just goes full Super Saiyan. They disappear. 3 days later, Chrome comes back, takes Senku to whatever they made, looking completely smug, like, yeah, we made it. I came up with it. Not so smart now, huh? And then Senku just looks at it and goes, oh, insert modern day invention. And Chrome's face just, yeah. What actually makes that funny and also kind of wild is that he made that with no prior knowledge. No reference point, no textbooks, no internet, nothing. He's not from the modern world. He has no idea what he's building half the time, and yet somehow he gets there anyway. The villagers are losing their minds because it looks like sorcery, but the people from the modern world, your Gens, your Senkus, people who grew up around this stuff and took it for granted, they're standing there like, how? Because Chrome had no idea what he was making. He just had a feeling, ran with it, and got there anyway. That's Chrome's whole thing, honestly. Senku builds the plan. Chrome is what happens when the plan falls apart in the field and somebody still needs to figure it out. Without him, the kingdom of science loses its best field improviser, and the person who probably keeps Senku grounded in what's actually doable with Stone Age materials. So if Senku is the blueprint and Chrome is the guy who figures it out in the field, Kaseki is the guy who actually makes the thing exist. And I think Kaseki is one of the most underrated characters in the show because his genius is so unglamorous. He's not out here doing anything flashy, he's not fighting anyone, he's not outsmarting anyone, he's just making stuff with his hands, to a level that should not be physically possible given what he's working with, like the glassware. Precision glass in a Stone Age village by hand that actually functions well enough for Senku to run lab experiments in. That's not a small thing. That's the kind of thing that took human civilization centuries to figure out, and Kaseki just does it because that's what he does. Kaseki's whole thing is that if Senku can think it up and draw it, Kaseki can make it. With a bit of trial and error, sure, but he gets there. Man is a craftsman by trade, and he will do it with zero complaints. And honestly, he loves everything he makes. The periscope, the steam gorilla, you can tell he's proud of it. The glass, the vacuum tubes, the katanas, the earpieces. Senku gives the blueprint, and Kaseki is basically the factory that gets it done. And yeah, he's not out there fighting like Kohaku or running mind games like Gen, but what he brings is production. He is the reason the flashy things the others use actually exist. Kohaku's katanas, Ukyo's arrows, the communication earpieces, the equipment on the Perseus, all of it goes through Kaseki at some point. And the show actually acknowledges this, which I appreciate, because every time the Medusa gets used and Kaseki ends up in stone, Senku immediately goes, "We're going to need our master craftsman on the case," or something about the craft club being out of commission. And the whole operation just visibly slows down. That's the show telling you directly, this guy matters. Take him out and things either slow down a lot or stop completely. But the thing I actually like about Kaseki is his genius comes with this ridiculous energy. Because remember, this man is old. He is not young. And then Chrome whispers something in his ear and he just completely loses it, like something wakes up in him and he's ready to go. That whole dynamic where Chrome comes up with the idea and Kaseki goes full Super Saiyan over it is genuinely one of the funnier recurring bits in the show. He doesn't get the spotlight, he just makes the spotlight possible.
So, Taiju is the guy that's easiest to dismiss on paper. Like, if you're listing off the roster and you get to Taiju, your first instinct is probably, okay, big guy, strong, loyal, kind of loud, got it, and you move on. But I think that's actually the point of Taiju, and I think the show is pretty deliberate about it, because Taiju's genius isn't a skill set, it's not a discipline or a craft or a technique, it's just him. And in a show full of people with very specific, very technical types of genius, that sounds like the least impressive thing on the list until you actually look at what Taiju does. And here's the thing about Taiju. Two things, actually. First is the physical side, because Taiju's strength and endurance are genuinely kind of absurd. This is a guy who can take a hit from Tsukasa and keep going. And if you've seen the Stone Wars arc, you know he also takes a beating from Nikki, just stands there and takes it, specifically to keep her from finding the cell phone Chrome's team hid near Senku's fake grave. And then there's the Perseus arc where everyone gets petrified and Taiju just goes. He's not the one doing the reviving, that's Senku's job, but Taiju is the one physically hauling statues one after another, bringing people back to Senku so he can do what he does. No complaints, no breaks, just keeps going until everyone is back. Which leads into the second thing, which is his loyalty. And honestly, this one matters more. Taiju is loyal to a level that's almost unreasonable. In the old world, he stood by Senku through every weird experiment, every terrible idea, every trust me moment. And when he wakes up in a stone world 3,700 years later with no context for anything, his first instinct isn't panic, it's Senku's probably already up and doing something, I need to find him. That's it, that's the whole thought process. And that trust isn't blind either. Taiju knows how Senku operates. You can see it in the Ryusui special when they're planting wheat and Taiju remembers what Senku said about crushed clams improving soil quality and just applies it. No prompt, no reminder, he was listening the whole time and he kept it. And it works. His crop ends up better than Yo's, better than Magma's, and he walks away as the farming king. He used knowledge his best friend gave him nearly a year back and held on to it until it mattered. In a world full of new faces and uncertainty, Taiju is the one person in Senku's corner who was there before any of this started. He's not there to be the smartest. He's there to make sure Senku can do what he needs to do and do it right. Oh, and his thing with Yuzuriha is still cute, even if the show kind of just forgot about it. Like, this man stayed conscious through 3,700 years of petrification just by thinking about her. That's either the most romantic thing in the show or the most unhinged. Honestly, maybe both. We see you, Taiju. So, Yuzuriha is another one who's easy to overlook, and honestly, the show doesn't do her the biggest favors in terms of screen time. But what she does in the time she gets is pretty specific and pretty irreplaceable. Her genius is in her hands. Fine motor work, precision crafting, needlework, textiles, anything that requires a level of delicacy that most of the other characters on this roster would absolutely fumble. And in a Stone Age world where everything has to be made from scratch, that kind of skill matters more than it sounds. But the moment that actually defines Yuzuriha, the thing that makes her genuinely irreplaceable, is what she's doing quietly in the background during the Tsukasa Empire arc. Because while Taiju is holding cover and Senku is building from the outside, Yuzuriha is secretly reassembling the stone statues that Tsukasa has been shattering. Piece by piece, fragment by fragment, she's putting people back together that Tsukasa thought he'd permanently destroyed. Senku actually specifically tells her to do that. It's her assigned mission inside the Empire, and it's also what ends up flipping Ukyo. He sees what Yuzuriha is doing with the broken statues and it hits him, because that's when he realizes the Kingdom of Science isn't the threat Tsukasa made them out to be. They're the ones actually trying to bring everyone back, all 7 billion people, and Yuzuriha reassembling those fragments in secret is the proof of that. That's what convinces him to switch. And honestly, going back even further, before the New World arc, Yuzuriha's hands were basically the reason almost everyone who got revived wasn't walking around in leaves like Senku and Taiju were in the first few episodes. She's clothing people, quietly, consistently in the background. And then there's the hot air balloon fabric, where she's putting in serious work using the looms Senku and Kaseki built, which sped up her output by a lot, but it's still her doing it. So here's the thing. Kaseki is your factory. Hard materials, heavy production. If Senku draws it, Kaseki builds it. But when something needs to be handled with actual care, when the work is delicate and the margin for error is basically zero, that's Yuzuriha. She's the precision the team reaches for when brute craft isn't enough. And she does it without making it a whole thing, which at this point is kind of her signature.
So Suika is the youngest on the roster, and probably the easiest one to underestimate, which is kind of funny because the show keeps putting her in situations where she's the only one who can do what needs to be done. Her genius is observation. She notices things, small things that happen in the background while everyone else is focused on the bigger problem. And her size, which the show plays as a running gag with the watermelon helmet, is actually a legitimate tactical advantage because she can go places and do things that none of the adults on the team can pull off without being spotted. And the thing is, this isn't a one-time thing. From the early seasons all the way into the New World arc, Suika keeps showing up in the gaps. She's the one gathering intel on what the Ishigami villagers actually want, so Senku can figure out how to get them on board. She's the one who figures out who beat Genup. She distracts Hyoga's forces by leading them straight into the sulfur gas trap. She sneaks into the Tsukasa Empire and comes back with information on Chrome, confirming he's alive and in captivity when nobody else even knew where he was. And then there's the Perseus. Rusui made a list of who was coming and Suika was not on it. She snuck on anyway because she wanted to help. And because she did, when the petrification hits the Perseus, Rusui's quick reflexes push her outside the radius in time. Well, technically Jinro also makes it, but that's not what we're talking about right now. She finds Senku's scouting team and tells them what happened, that their friends are stone statues and that Treasure Island has the Medusa. She wasn't supposed to be there. She had no official reason to be on that ship, but because she was, the scouting team didn't just stumble onto a disaster with no context. They knew, and that information is what keeps the whole thing from completely falling apart. But the moment that actually cements Suika as something more than support is the time skip, because when the global petrification hits, Suika is the only one left, not in the Ishigami village, not somewhere familiar, in the Amazon, alone, for 7 years. No Senku to figure things out, no Chrome to hunt for materials, no Kaseki to build anything, no Kahaku to fight off predators, no Francois to handle food, just Suika, a kid in one of the most hostile environments on the planet with nothing but her memory of everything Senku ever taught her. And she does it through grueling trial and error. She works through every lesson, every process, everything she watched Senku do, and she starts reviving her friends one by one. It's slower, it's harder, it costs her years of her childhood, but she gets there. She basically does what Senku did at the very start of the show, except she's a child, she's alone, and she's in the Amazon. And honestly, we say Chrome is Senku's student, but Chrome was already a scientist before Senku showed up. He just needed someone to point him in the right direction. Suika is the closest thing to an actual student Senku has, because she didn't come in with any of that. She watched, she listened, she absorbed everything, and then she actually put it into practice when it mattered most. You can see it even in the newer seasons where she and Chrome are cramming math together to figure out the return rocket. She's not just support anymore. She's doing the science. She's in the work. Suika is Senku's unofficial student, and I don't think that's even a debate at this point. So if anyone wants to say Suika is just the kid of the group, I'd say you're not paying attention. She carries the team in the spaces the older members don't think to cover, and when everyone was gone and there was nothing left, she was the one who brought them back. Without her, the team loses its eyes in places nobody else can reach, and at one point, she's the only reason there's still a team at all. So Kohaku is the first person you meet from the Stone World, and from the jump, the show makes it very clear that she is not someone you want to be on the wrong side of. Her genius is combat, but I think calling her just a fighter undersells what she actually brings, because Kohaku doesn't just hit hard, she reads fights. Before they happen, while they're happening, she's already 3 steps ahead of whoever she's up against. She tracks, she ambushes, she makes real-time calls about what's possible and what isn't, and she does all of that while also managing whatever else is happening around her. That's not just strength. That's battlefield intelligence. And you see it from the moment she meets Tsukasa. She doesn't hesitate. She goes at him. And Tsukasa, both in his head and out loud, acknowledges that she's a capable warrior. Someone who, with proper training, could actually rival him. That's not a small thing coming from Tsukasa. And it keeps showing up. During Stone Wars, Homura acknowledges that Kohaku is the only one who can actually keep up with her movements, and that with proper training, she could be a pro acrobat. In the New World arc, after being found out, she immediately goes into problem-solving mode, making call after call to make sure she and Ginro end up in exactly the right position so they can survive being petrified together. In the Andes, with Zeno as a hostage and Stanley on their tail, she doesn't hesitate. She jumps off a cliff and uses her body to secure a safe path for everyone else to cross. No discussion, no deliberation, she just does it. That's what I mean when I say Kohaku is a ride or die. If you mess with the people she cares about, she will not hesitate to deal with it, and she will do it with cold and ruthless efficiency. You see it even early on with how she treats Gen, because the second he shows up, she clocks him as a potential threat, and basically decides he needs to be handled immediately. That's just how she operates. And here's the thing, Senku can be the brain, Chrome can find the materials, Kaseki can build it, Suika can scout. But when an actual threat walks through the door, you need a vanguard. Taiju can't do it, he's a pacifist. Tsukasa can, but Tsukasa has ideals, a whole philosophy about who deserves to live in the new world. Kohaku doesn't have ideals. She has loyalty, not to the kingdom of science as an institution, but to her people. She trusts that they can pull off the miracle, and her job is to make sure they're still alive when they do. Without her, the kingdom of science has no physical defense. None of Senku's plans, none of Chrome's improvisation, none of any of it matters if something dangerous shows up and there's nobody to deal with it. Kohaku is who deals with it, and she has never once needed to be asked twice. So Ukyo is interesting because he starts the show as an antagonist, or at least he's positioned that way. And then you find out pretty quickly that he's been quietly running his own game the whole time. His genius is sensory, specifically his hearing, which is not normal. Ukyo was a JSDF Navy sonar operator in the old world, which means his entire job was processing sound as information, detecting what's out there before anyone can see it, and making calls based on what he hears. That skill doesn't go away just because civilization ended. If anything, it becomes more valuable. In the Stone World, he's basically a living radar system. And what's interesting about how the show uses him is that he's kind of a weird mix of a few characters rolled into one. He has Suika's scouting ability, but at range. Where Suika works best up close, even in the enemy's face, Ukyo can gather the same kind of information from a distance without anyone knowing he's there. He has Kohaku's decision-making when it counts, the ability to make a critical call fast and commit to it. And he has Taiju's moral core in that he genuinely does not want bloodshed if he can avoid it. Every time a new danger shows up, Ukyo is the first one who knows about it. And that gap between knowing and not knowing is often the entire difference between the team surviving and not. The clearest example is during the Cave of Miracles battle, where he picks up on Tsukasa's arrival the moment he gets within range and calls it out before anyone else has any idea he's coming. That's the kind of warning that can be the difference between being ready and being caught completely off guard. And then, during Stone Wars, he finds the phone Chrome's team hid, figures out what Yuzuriha has been doing with the broken statues, and just switches quietly,
Without making a scene, he starts protecting Chrome's infiltration team instead of reporting them, because he figured out which side was actually trying to save people, and he made a call. That's not just sensory genius, that's moral clarity under pressure, which is its own kind of intelligence, honestly. Without Ukyo, the team operates blind to anything approaching. Several situations that they survived because they had warning would have just been ambushes.
So, Ryusui is one of those characters who shows up and immediately makes the whole operation feel bigger. Like, before Ryusui, the Kingdom of Science is a village with ambitions. After Ryusui, suddenly there's a ship and an ocean and a destination. His genius is navigation and scale. But honestly, that's only part of it, because what Ryusui also brings is something the Kingdom of Science was quietly struggling with the whole time, which is how to keep people motivated. Think about it. From Season 1, Senku's whole strategy for getting people on board is science as spectacle. He makes something that wows the Ishibami villages. They get excited, they help out, and in return they get ramen or whatever the science team cooked up that week. And that works, for a while, for people who've never seen any of this before. But as the numbers grow, it starts to crack. Jen even points it out directly, that once you get past around 150 people, managing them gets genuinely hard. That's not an arbitrary number either. That's basically the threshold the human brain can handle in terms of remembering names and faces. It's why military units in the old world kept their operational numbers around that range. Beyond that, you need a system. Ryusui brings the system. He introduces the Drago, a currency. And yeah, at first it reads as him just being Ryusui about it, very on brand, very greedy, but what he actually did was bring back commerce and capitalism. And because of that, people weren't just doing things for nothing anymore. They were working for actual pay that could be exchanged for actual goods. That motivation is what allowed the team to keep depetrifying people and adding manpower to bigger and bigger projects without everything falling apart socially. And it goes beyond the currency. Ryusui understands personnel. He made the list for the Perseus voyage himself, assessing who was fit to be on board and who could handle things when they go wrong. That's not just logistics, that's leadership. He and Senku even have that poker battle over which route to take to America. And Ryusui argues his case not just on navigation grounds, but on the crew's well-being, because he knows that without a healthy crew, they don't make it to America at all. He's thinking about the humans in the operation, not just the destination. And then there's the moment in the new season where he concedes the rocket pilot seat to Stanley. Ryusui, whose whole motto is greed as justice, looks at the situation, assesses that Stanley is simply better at aerial navigation than he is, and steps aside. No drama, no ego, just a clean decision in the interest of the mission and his friends. For a guy whose whole thing is greed, that's a quietly remarkable moment. Because that's the thing about his motto. He doesn't use greed for evil. He uses it to push himself and everyone around him towards something better. He's not greedy for himself, he's greedy for the goal. Without Ryusui, the Kingdom of Science stays on the island. The mission to find the source of petrification doesn't happen. Everything that comes after the Perseus arc, all of it doesn't happen. He's the one who opens up the world, keeps the crew alive long enough to get there, and makes sure people actually want to show up for work in the first place.
So Francois is the one that people most often look at and go, okay, the butler, cute, moving on. And I get it, because on a roster with a combat genius and a sensory genius and a guy who basically reinvented capitalism, a master butler and chef sounds like the odd one out. But here's the thing about Francois. A team that's exhausted, hungry, and falling apart emotionally does not win. It doesn't matter how smart Senku is or how hard Kohaku hits. If the people doing the work are running on empty, the operation fails. Francois is the reason that doesn't happen. Their genius is operational, and honestly, they're an interesting mix between Gen and Kaseki. Like Gen, they use hospitality as a tool, to heal, to distract, to ease someone's burden without making it obvious that's what they're doing. Like Kaseki, they have a craft that they execute at a level nobody else on the team can touch. The difference is their craft is food and service, and in a stone world where morale is a resource just as much as iron or nitric acid, that matters enormously. And you can literally track their impact by food quality. The moment Francois gets revived, the Kingdom of Science's meals upgrade immediately. You can see it in the Ryusui special. You can see it every time they get brought back after a Medusa event. And one of the quieter but more telling moments is during the time skip.
when Suika finally revives Francois after years alone, and you can just feel the relief in that scene. Because Suika missed the food. Of course she did. That food was comfort, it was normalcy, it was a small piece of the world they were all fighting to get back. The moment that tells you everything about Francois, though, is right when they first get revived. They wake up from petrification, clock the burnt bread in seconds, and immediately propose Stalin, a bread that can last 10 months at sea, as the solution for the upcoming ocean voyage. They haven't even fully oriented to the stone world yet, and they're already solving a problem nobody else had thought to solve. Zero adjustment period, just straight into it. And this is why Francois compliments Ryusui so well. Ryusui brings the scale, the personnel management, the motivation through commerce. Francois brings the other half of that equation, which is someone who actually makes a good meal after a hard day of work. You need both. The Dragoon gives people a reason to show up. Francois gives people a reason to feel human while they're there. Take Francois out of the picture and the Kingdom of Science loses one of its biggest morale drivers. The food quality drops, the nutrition drops, and the team loses the one person who knows how to use hospitality as a way to hold people together when things get hard. Without Francois, the crew degrades, not dramatically, not all at once, just slowly, quietly, until the operation stops working from the inside out.
So, Gen is the character that I think is the most underrated on this entire roster. And I say that knowing full well that Senku is the main character, and Chrome basically reinvented science from scratch. Because here's the thing. Everything the Kingdom of Science builds, every invention, every plan, every operation, all of it has to go through people at some point. And people are messy. People have fears and egos and loyalties and grudges and all kinds of things that don't respond to science or logic or a 10 billion% speech. And Senku, for all his genius, is genuinely not equipped to handle that. He knows it, Gen knows it, everyone knows it. Gen is the one who handles it. His genius is people. He reads them the way Senku reads chemical reactions, fast, accurately, and with a very clear idea of what's going to happen next if you apply the right pressure in the right place. He's a professional mentalist, which in the old world meant he did it for entertainment, but in the stone world, it means he is running psychological operations on a daily basis and winning. And what makes Gen actually interesting is that he starts the show as Tsukasa's spy. He gets sent to confirm whether Senku is actually alive and report back, and instead, he just doesn't. The decision to switch sides, that's him assessing both options on his own and making a call. But here's the thing. It's not a random decision. Gen read both sides. He looked at Tsukasa's promise of a world where the young and pure-hearted rule, and then he looked at Senku, this random high school kid in a stone world with nothing, no resources, no army, no convenient modern technology, just an unhealthy obsession with science and an absolute refusal to bluff. And Gen made a call. Because sure, Tsukasa's world sounds nice on paper, but the young and pure-hearted can't bring back cola, or electricity, or the internet, or any of the stuff someone from the modern world has grown up taking for granted. Senku can, and Gen knew it the moment he saw him work. That's the thing about Gen's intelligence. He doesn't just read people, he reads situations. He knows when someone is talking out of their ass, and he knows when someone actually means what they say, and will do it through sheer process and grueling trial and error. Senku is the latter, and once Gen clocked that, he was in. His genius is people. He understands their fears, their wants, what motivates them, what makes them tick, how they think, and he uses that understanding constantly, quietly, in ways you don't always notice until you look back. Like the flower trick with Magma in the early seasons, making it look like actual magic to get him to back off. Or how he emulates Tsukasa to help Senku and the crew predict how Tsukasa would actually react when Hyoga comes back to report the failed attack, basically letting them wargame the response before it happens. Or how he straight up lies to Tsukasa's face, telling him Senku is dead and the village is just a primitive group with no science, which is exactly the cover Senku needed. Or how he fools Hyoga by pretending to run away with him, acting like he's just playing the other side while quietly sabotaging his Kudayati the whole time.
Or the Lillian impersonation, where he and Senku pull off a full psychological operation on Tsukasa's army using nothing but a recording and Gen's performance. No weapons, no science, just Gen understanding what those people were missing from the world they lost and using it. And then there's the smaller stuff that doesn't get highlighted enough. How he manages the emotional temperature of the team, how he smooths things over before they become problems, how he gets people to go along with what Senku needs without them realizing that's what just happened. Gen is not the science duo of Senku's process mastery or Chrome's curious accidental innovation. He's not a fighter like Kohaku, not a scale bringer like Ryusui, not a nimble scout like Suika. But in a world where all the modern conveniences are gone and people are uncertain and scared, and this team of young kids is basically trying to save all of humanity, you need someone who can navigate minds, someone who can make people feel like what this team is doing is worth supporting, worth believing in, worth fighting for. Without Gen, Senku can't read a room. The team's efforts become a weird group of kids playing hero with no one to smooth the path in front of them. But with Gen, they get support, they avoid unnecessary conflict, and someone is always one step ahead thinking about how to motivate, persuade, or just subtly steer people in the direction the Kingdom of Science needs them to go. He may be the one person other than Taiju and Yasuhiro who genuinely grew to believe in Senku, not just as a teammate, but as the guy who's actually going to do what he says. And in a stone world full of uncertainty, having someone that sharp in your corner, someone who's chosen to be there because they did the math and decided you're worth it, that means more than it sounds.
So, Tsukasa is the odd one out on this list, and I want to address that up front. He spent most of the early show actively trying to stop Senku, so why is he here? Because Tsukasa is one of the most complete characters on this roster, and the show uses him to show you exactly why every single person on this list needed to exist. But first, the context, because I think people forget that Tsukasa isn't just a villain with cool fight scenes. The reason he starts destroying statues is because he has a little sister who is essentially brain dead, and in a world where Senku is talking about reviving all of humanity, Tsukasa decides to control who gets revived and who doesn't, because he doesn't trust the old world's adults to build something better. That's not an evil goal, it's a misguided one, but it comes from a real place. And then Senku finds his sister's statue and revives her, while also proving with actual evidence that the petrification has healing properties. Senku himself is proof of that. He survived what should have killed him because a small piece of stone stayed behind his neck. And then later, after Hyoga nearly kills Tsukasa in the final stretch of Stone Wars, Senku does the same thing for him, petrifies him with the Medusa and revives him again, healed. That's the moment Tsukasa switches sides, and honestly, given everything, it makes complete sense. Because here's the thing about Tsukasa, he's not just a fighter. His genius is battle prowess combined with charisma, and that combination is rarer than it sounds. He can lead people, he can make them feel like what he's doing is worth following. He builds an entire rival civilization from scratch, using nothing but physical dominance, the right people, and a philosophy that actually resonates with the people he's selling it to. He picks Hyoga for enforcement, Ukyo for surveillance, Minami for information. He constructs a command structure that functions. That's not brute force, that's leadership intelligence. And in a weird way, Tsukasa has a little bit of Gen, a little bit of Ryusui, and a little bit of Senku all at once. Gen's ability to read people and get them on his side, Ryusui's scale thinking and personnel assessment, Senku's observational intelligence, which you can see in the fact that he memorizes the revival fluid formula just from watching Senku work. Nobody taught him that, he just retained it because that's how his brain processes information. He also sees through Gen's operations faster than most people should be able to. He reads the battlefield like a chessboard. He makes adjustments in real time. He is, tactically, the most complete opponent the Kingdom of Science ever faced. And then, he joins them. And when he does, you pair his sheer physical dominance with Kohaku's nimbleness and battlefield intelligence, and that is genuinely a terrifying combination. The battle team with both of them in it is a completely different animal. Tsukasa's goal was never evil, it was just misguided in how he went about it. And once Senku gave him a reason to believe there was another way, he committed to that with the same totality he committed to everything else. He didn't start out as a member of the Kingdom of Science, he built something that forced it to be worth joining, and then he joined it anyway.
Alright, anime folk, Dr. Stone is a lot of things. It's a science anime, it's a survival story, it's somehow both educational and genuinely fun to watch.
But I think what makes it stick is this. No single person wins. Not Senku, not Tsukasa, not anyone. It takes all of them. Every type of genius, every skill set, every weird specific thing that only one person on the roster can do, and even then it's close. So yeah, that's my take. Also, I'm not gonna lie, this video took way longer than I expected, and it was kind of a pain to make. I had to re-watch Dr. Stone just to put this together, so if I missed anything or got any details wrong, please let me know in the comments. I will take the L. And if you could show the video some love by liking and subscribing, that would be genuinely nice. If you want me to talk about another anime or just do another analysis video, let me know down below. Now, I want to know yours. Drop it in the comments. Which character on this roster do you think is the most underrated? And if you had to pick one person to start your own Kingdom of Science with, who are you picking and why? And genuinely, which of these genius types do you think you are? Because I feel like that one says a lot about a person. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. It helps more than you think. And if you're new here, subscribe, because we do this kind of thing a lot. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.